The wind howled across the charred wasteland of Krivath 9, carrying with it the acrid stench of burnt ozone and death. Captain Arya Nolan picked her way through the rubble of what had once been a Velkhari settlement, her boots crunching on scorched earth and shattered crystal. The orbital bombardment had been precise, clinical. Nothing should have survived. Yet something had. The sound was faint at first, barely audible over the wind. A weak, rasping whimper that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of a failing heart. Arya froze, her hand instinctively moving to the plasma pistol at her hip. Her tactical visor scanned the debris field, thermal imaging flickering across structures that still radiated residual heat from the attack. There, behind a collapsed wall, a heat signature so small her HUD almost dismissed it as a sensor error. She approached cautiously. The Velkhari were apex predators, even their young possessing claws that could shred titanium plating. But what she found made her breath catch in her throat. The cub was barely the size of her forearm, its midnight blue fur matted with ash and blood. Its 6 legs were curled beneath a body too thin, too fragile. The bioluminescent markings that should have pulsed with vibrant life along its spine flickered weakly, like dying stars. Its eyes, 3 of them arranged in a triangular pattern, opened to fix on her with a clarity that spoke of intelligence beyond its infant form. It didn't snarl or hiss. It simply stared, waiting for death. Arya had seen plenty of death in her 15 years with the Terran Defense Coalition. She'd watched colonies burn, held dying comrades, made the hard calls that kept humanity alive in a galaxy that seemed determined to snuff them out. She'd learned to bury empathy beneath duty, to see enemies as targets rather than lives. But this wasn't an enemy. This was a child. She glanced at the sky, where the TDC cruiser Resolute hung in orbit like a silent judge. Command had been clear. The Velkhari were a threat to human expansion. Their empire had refused every diplomatic overture, responded to every peace offering with violence. This strike had been deemed necessary, surgical. Arya had led the ground verification team herself, confirming the target's destruction. Her mission was complete. She should report in, return to the ship, file her report. The cub would be dead within the hour anyway. Exposure, starvation, or the orbital drones that would sweep the area one final time. The cub made that sound again, softer now. Its breathing had become shallow, irregular. Arya's jaw tightened. She unclasped her thermal cloak, the military-grade fabric designed to shield against everything from Arctic cold to energy weapons. Without hesitation, she knelt and wrapped the tiny creature in its folds, feeling its body tremble against her chest as she lifted it. It weighed almost nothing. "You're going to be okay," she whispered, though she had no idea if it could understand human speech. "I've got you." The walk back to the extraction point felt like miles. Her squad leader's voice crackled in her earpiece, asking for her status, requesting confirmation of the sweep. Arya responded with clipped efficiency, reporting no surviving threats, no complications. She didn't mention the bundle pressed against her chest, the faint vibration she could feel through, the cloak that might have been a purr or might have been a dying shudder. Smuggling the cub aboard the Resolute required every trick she'd learned in a decade and a half of service. She bypassed the main hangar, using a maintenance airlock that owed her a favor. Her quarters were small, Spartan. A captain's privilege was privacy, nothing more. She laid the cub on her bunk, its breathing still shallow but steadier now, away from the wind and cold. The ship's medical database had limited information on Velkhari physiology. They were carnivores, obligate predators with metabolisms that burned hot and fast. The cub needed protein, needed warmth, needed care that Arya had no training to provide. She worked through the night, synthesizing nutrient paste from her protein rations, rigging a heating pad from spare equipment, monitoring the cub's vital signs with a scanner she'd borrowed from the medical bay. It drank weakly at first, then with growing strength, its eyes watching her with that same unsettling intelligence. By morning, the bioluminescent markings along its spine glowed with faint but steady light. Arya named it Rin, a Velkhari word she'd learned from intelligence briefings, meaning survivor or the one who endures. It seemed fitting. The days that followed were a masterclass in deception. Arya submitted flawless reports, attended briefings, commanded her unit with the same cold efficiency that had earned her 3 commendations. But in the privacy of her quarters, she was something else. Caretaker, guardian, perhaps even something like a mother. Rin grew quickly. Within a week, it could walk steadily on all 6 legs. Within 2, it had learned to respond to its name, to play with the makeshift toys Arya fashioned from spare parts. Its eyes followed her everywhere, and when she returned from duty shifts it would chirp, a sound that stabbed straight through every wall she'd built around her heart. She knew this couldn't last. Eventually, someone would find out. There would be questions, investigations, court-martials. The Velkhari were the enemy. Harboring one, even a cub, was treason by any reasonable definition. But when Rin curled against her at night, purring that deep, thrumming sound that meant contentment and trust, Arya found she didn't care. 3 months after Krivath 9, the Resolute received new orders, a diplomatic mission to a neutral station where Velkhari and human envoys would attempt once again to negotiate peace. Arya stood before her mirror in full dress uniform, Rin perched on her shoulder, no longer a dying cub but a juvenile predator whose loyalty was absolute. She thought about the galaxy humanity inhabited, about the wars they'd fought and the enemies they'd made. She thought about the choice she'd made on a charred world, to carry life away from death. Maybe humans weren't the strongest species, or the smartest or the fastest, but they had something others didn't. Something that made them dangerous and beautiful in equal measure. They had the capacity to choose compassion when logic demanded cruelty, to see a child where others saw only a threat, to enfold the helpless in their cloaks and carry them home. Rin chirped, nuzzling against her neck, and Arya smiled. "Come on, troublemaker," she said softly. "Let's go show them what humanity really means." She walked toward the conference room, toward consequences unknown, with a Velkhari cub on her shoulder and hope, fragile but burning bright in her chest. In the end, perhaps that was the most human thing of all.